What's up everybody, NFX here with another tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to continue on the topic of doing a funky guitar part. In a previous tutorial I talked about how I laid down the chords for the guitar part and how I used the strum tool to make them sound more realistic. And now we're going to the next level and we're going to actually make the sound more realistic as far as a funk guitar part goes. So I'm going to bring up the pattern that I'm going to be working with, and we'll take a listen. Okay, so it's a nice 2-bar pattern, and what we want to do is add some effects. This is using a clean guitar right now, so what we want to do is add some effects to it. So what I'm going to do is look for the effects. I'm going to bring up the instrument and route it. It's routed to effects channel 7. So I'm going to go to channel 7, and I've already preloaded some effects in here. And then I've got an AmpliTube, I've got a Fruity filter, and I've got 2 formula controllers. And I'm going to explain what's going on with all of this in just a moment. The first thing I want to show you though is how you can do a very simple wah wah effect using just the Fruity filter, which is here, and a formula controller. But let's just start with one thing at a time. Here's the filter right here, and remember this sound is now going through this filter. So let's take a listen to it. Okay, now that's going through this filter. Now this is the cutoff frequency of this particular filter. I'm going to move it back and forth. You can hear how it kind of gets a wah or a wobbly effect. Now, the thing is, I don't want to sit here with my mouse and do this, you know, all through the song, right? And you know, yeah, I could record myself doing this in FL Studio. I could actually record myself doing this and it'll play back with it. But I want to automate it because automation is just cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a formula controller, and in this case I'm going to use this formula controller right here. And what this formula controller does, I'm going to turn off the effect real quick and I'm going to play it for you. What the formula controller does is it has this mathematical formula, and don't worry if you don't know what all this means. I know I don't. But what I did basically here was I just selected to use a preset, in this case a basic sine LFO. Okay, and then I tweaked the knobs a little, and I'll talk about that in a second. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute out this guitar part. Then I'm going to hit play, and you're going to see what this effect, this formula controller, it's going to do. And what you're looking at is basically it's creating, through this mathematical formula, it's creating this waveform that's just going up and down, and you can see here it's doing the same thing. And if you saw the peak controller demo, it's very similar to that in the sense that it's basically just going through this motion, right? It's just an up and down motion. It's a sine wave. This is what a sine wave looks like. It's just a very even wave. So I want to transfer this motion to this knob here to make it do something. So I'm going to say link to controller, and then I'm going to find it in the list. In this case I know it's insert 7 out, so I'm going to select that and accept it. Now I'm going to just mute that out, and I'm going to hit play. Now as this thing goes up and down, notice my cutoff frequency here is now moving along with it. Okay, so it's moving based off this formula up here. So now when I turn the sound back on and we listen to it, now we have a wah effect on our guitar part. Really simple to do once you know how to do it. and it's not a bad wah effect either. Now, in regards to guitar, though, you might want to go a step further. And what I've done is I've used an AmpliTube plugin. And most of you probably have heard of AmpliTube, but if you haven't, basically what it is, it's a plugin that emulates a guitar amp and guitar effects. So it can take a guitar sound that's pretty clean, and then add some kind of extra stuff to it, right? And in this case, this particular plugin actually has a wah pedal effect built into it. So I'm going to turn it on, but in this case, let me play the part. Let me turn off the other effect, so we can just hear this. And this one, we can put auto wah, which doesn't sound that bad. But to make it sound better, again, wouldn't it be nice to automate this button? But with a plugin that's not made by FL Studio, I can't right-click on this button and see a link to controller. But what I can do is move the control, then go to this menu here, go to last tweaked parameter, and then say link to controller. And basically what I'm saying is, whatever the last thing I just tweaked was, link it to a controller. So I'm going to link it to a controller, and the controller I want to link it to is this formula control insert 7, which is the first one on my list. And I'll show you why in a second. But now that I've linked that, you can see I've got two formula controllers. Both of them were named the same. That's why the first time I picked the second one, because I was dealing with this one. This one, which is the one we've now linked this wah button to, we'll bring it up again. This one has a different formula in it. This formula is it's a different preset. It's like I don't even remember which one it is. I think it's Advanced LFO2, but it's got a different waveform to it. Remember, the other one was just this even up and down waveform. This one's going to be different. When I hit play, you can see this one starts off kind of weak, gets kind of strong, then it moves. It's moving much different than the other one. You can see that it's definitely not just this even motion. And the reason why I've selected this formula is because it gives it kind of a randomized feel to it. And if we turn everything back on and listen and bring up AmpliTube, we'll see this thing now moving by itself. And actually, why don't I put the controller where you can see the waveform, because you'll notice that the wah knob moves in unison with the waveform. So if the waveform's moving very little, the wah knob's moving very little. If the waveform starts moving bigger and bigger, the wah knob starts moving bigger and bigger. So let's look at them together. Okay, so now you've seen how to automate an FL effect, and you've seen how to automate a third-party or non-FL effect. Now, if I put all those effects together, then I get what I think is a pretty decent funk guitar sound. And if you add, a bass line to it and some drums, you might have something pretty decent. And there you go. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial.